Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to another Verbling class, another English class here on Verbling. And my name is Lisa. I'm one of the English teachers here at verbling.com. And in this hour, we're going to be having a reading class where we read an article together and we go over the vocabulary and then we discuss if we have time. So if you have a reservation for this hour, then of course you can use it now. If you don't have a reservation but you want to join this class, just wait a minute, and when you see the join class button, then you can join. Hi there, Rafa.
Hi, teacher.
How are you?
I'm pretty fine, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. And Patricia, how are you doing?
Hello, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good. How's your dog?
Hey, she's here sleeping beside
Oh,
me.
okay. How old is she?
It's 11 years. She's a
Oh,
grandmother dog.
yeah, wonderful. Nice. Is she still healthy?
Nowadays not.
Mm.
She's resting because she has a injury in his backbone.
Oh, okay.
She
Oh,
can't walk properly. She has a problem
oh,
with pose.
bummer. All
Yeah.
right. Well, hope she feels better. Um, Hi there, Amparo.
Hi, teacher. How are you?
Good. Welcome. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Amparo, how's the weather where you are?
Good. 27.
Wow, nice.
Mm.
Perfect.
It's not warm, not too warm today.
Not too warm. Yeah.
Yeah,
During
it's
this
okay.
time, do you get very much rain?
But the rain is about 30 minutes during the
Oh,
day, but not is every day also. For example, yesterday it rains about I think 30 minutes night,
uh-huh.
and then yeah, it was over.
Oh, okay. That's kind of nice. It's like watering. Oh, we'll just water the grass a little bit.
Yeah,
Water
yeah.
plants.
I don't need to water the plants today because of
Yeah,
the rain.
nice.
That's good.
Yeah, that is really good. Okay, let's see. Let's say hi to Artem. Hi, Artem.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Artem, where are you from?
I'm from Russia, Moscow.
Oh, from Moscow. Okay, great. Wonderful. Welcome. And hi, Ellen. How are you today?
Hi, good evening, Lisa. I'm fine, thank you for asking.
All right, good. All right, you guys. So I put the link to the document in the Verbling chat. Is everybody okay using the Verbling chat? If somebody's Verbling chat doesn't work, we can also use the group chat, which is on your left. If you click on the icon on the left, the blue icon with the white lines, then it opens up the group chat on your right. So we can use either one, the Verbling chat or the group chat. If we use the Verbling chat, that means other people who might be watching this right now, they can see what we're writing. If we use the group chat, then that's private, so nobody will be able to see what we write there. Okay, hi Diego, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Diego, where were you calling from?
I'm from Colombia.
Oh, Colombia. Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay, guys, so for people who are new to my classes, I do reading classes a couple of times a week. I only have about 10 hours worth of classes on Verbling, and so I do different types of classes. I really like the reading classes because it gives us an opportunity to do a lot of things, which one of them is listening, because I'm going to read out loud so you can listen. The other one is for you to practice your pronunciation and reading by doing that, because everybody takes turns. But also, hopefully, it's to learn new vocabulary in a context. So not just studying lists of words or something, but we're going to be reading something that is current. I always go to websites and find real articles. They're not articles created for English learners. They're just the real articles that I would read, anybody who speaks English would read, about lots of different topics. And so this way we can look at prepositions, we can look at phrasal verbs, we can look at grammatical structures, but all within a context that's hopefully interesting, something, a topic that's interesting. Sometimes we have time at the end of the class to discuss or to make some comments or ask questions. Sometimes we don't. It just depends how many people show up to the class and how long the article is. Today's article I got from the BBC.com, and it's this thing called "Could Fining Parents Cut Childhood Obesity?" So you've probably heard about this topic before. It's certainly a topic, a very important topic in the United States, where we have pretty high rates of childhood obesity. So meaning that these children are overweight, and people are very concerned about that. One thing might be the food that they're eating. Of course, the other thing might be exercise and lifestyle choices, that type of thing. So the question here that this article asks is, could fining parents, so to fine is the main thing you have to understand here, and that means when you fine somebody, it's like you make them pay. So for example, if you are speeding and you get a ticket, that's like a fine, that's a penalty. So the idea is, should we make parents pay, and will that help reduce childhood obesity? So in this case, the word cut really means to reduce. We want to make this problem stop. That's the idea. So I got it from this website here, and even we're not going to read this part though, but if you're interested, Denmark has a fat tax, where they are charging more for certain types of foods, that type of thing. So this is definitely a topic that people are discussing here in the United States and in other countries around the world, as this seems to be a modern day problem. Okay, so I'll start reading and then we'll take turns. And I saw Laura. Hi Laura, you joined us. Welcome. You can read along by opening the document if you want. You can also just look in the screen, my screen. I will be going up the page, scrolling up, so people can also see on the page. All right, so title, Could Fining Parents Cut Childhood Obesity? Obesity is described as one of the biggest problems facing mankind. The small U.S. territory of Puerto Rico is debating whether to fine parents who fail to get their children to lose weight. But would this work elsewhere? More than 600 million people, or 13% of the world's adult population, are obese. The rate more than doubled between 1980 and 2014, according to the World Health Organization. The estimated cost to the global economy is, oh my gosh, 2 trillion. This is a British way of abbreviating that. We don't do that here in the United States. $2 trillion, including 47 billion pounds to the UK. So, wow, a lot of money there. Okay, Amparo, why don't we start off with you today?
Okay. Obesity is described as one of the biggest problems facing mankind. The small U.S. territory of Puerto Rico is debating whether to fine parents who fail to get their children to lose weight. But would this work elsewhere? More than 600 million people, or 13% of the world's adult population, are obese. The rate more than doubled between 1980 and 2014. According to the World Health Organization. The estimated cost to the global economy is $2 trillion, including 47 billion pounds to the UK.
Okay. All right. So it's described as when you describe something as, that you're telling us what it is, basically. So you're telling us it is one of the biggest problems. Sometimes what I like to do is also give you other words. So So you can expand your vocabulary that way and see what other ways you can write things. Because whenever you write, whenever you speak, you have lots of possibilities for expressing yourself. So obesity is described as one of the biggest, you could say the largest, one of the most significant, something like that. Facing mankind. Facing, it means it's the thing we have to deal with. So when you have to face a problem, you have to deal with it. It's facing you. It's facing us. it's right in our face, you could say. So mankind just means us, humans, people. So we're talking about Puerto Rico. That's where they're starting off this article. Is just saying that in Puerto Rico they're debating. So people are discussing whether or not, they're having some kind of a debate, a controversial issue, obviously, whether or not they should fine parents who fail to get their children to lose weight. So they're kind of putting it on the parents. It's your job to help your child lose weight. And if you don't, you might have to pay a fine. That's the idea. Okay, so the question this author, Justin Parkinson, is asking, could this or would this work elsewhere? And then he's defining the problem here. So, lots and lots of people around the world, adults, are obese. This rate, so when you talk about the rate, it's like the percentage, it more than doubled. So more than twice as many people now are obese than before, and that's according to the World Health Organization, which is, if you see it, the WHO. Okay, and then, like I said, this is from England, so TN stands for trillion, BN stands for billion. Okay, national and local governments have struggled to address obesity, defined as having a body mass index based on the ratio of height to weight of more than 30. They often face accusations of nanny statism and opposition from food and drink companies if they do so. Attempts have been patchy, and experts are divided on what, if anything, works. In 2011, Denmark brought in a fat tax on foods containing more than 2.3% saturated fat, but the inflated prices drove consumers over the border to Germany. The policy was dropped a year later, and the government canceled plans for a tax on sugar. Okay, Artem.
Okay. I should continue from in 2012, yes?
No, actually, you just read the same part that I just read. You read that.
Okay. Okay. National and local governments have struggled to address obesity, defined as having a body mass index based on the ratio of height to weight of more than 30. They often face accusations of nanny statism and opposition from food and drink companies if they do so. Attempts have been patchy, and experts are divided on what, if anything, works. In 2011, Denmark brought in a fat tax on foods containing more than 2.3% saturated fat, but the inflated prices drove consumers over the border to Germany. The policy was dropped a year later, and the government cancelled plans for a tax on sugar.
Okay, good. All right, so national and local. So national, of course, meaning the whole country. Local referring to towns, cities, things like that. They have struggled. So they're having a hard time. So when you struggle with something, it means you're having a hard time. They don't know what to do about this problem. So they're having a hard time addressing, or they have struggled to address or to work with this problem. So the problem of obesity, it's a very difficult issue that national and local governments don't really know what to do. Here's the definition. So defined as, and if you click on this link, it probably goes to where you can figure out what your body mass index is. The abbreviation for body mass index is BMI. So if you ever read that, that's what they're talking about, BMI. And let's see, they often face accusations of. So a national and or a local government, if they're trying to do something to try to help people lose weight or something, then people accuse them. So they say, hey, this is what you're doing. They're accusing them of what they're calling nanny statism. That's not something that we use too much in the United States, that term. We might say more like paternalism or something, but the idea is, you know, a nanny takes care of you, and so it's like the state or this, you know, national government is trying to take care of individual people, and some people don't like that. They don't want to be taken care of by the government like that. So they also face opposition. So to face opposition means the food and drink companies, they don't want them to, you know, make a tax to make their food more expensive just because it has more sugar or fat or something like that in it. So there's opposition from, that's the preposition you use with that, opposition from these food and drink companies if they try to do something like a regulation or something. So attempts, when you attempt to do something, you try. So maybe some attempts by the governments have been patchy. That means they've just been, we say, few and far between. So just a little bit here and there. And even the experts are divided. So they're divided means they do not agree. And we use the preposition on. So they're divided on what works. You know, if anything, maybe they're not sure if anything will work, but they don't agree. So if two people or two groups of people are divided, it means you don't really agree. It's a controversy. And then they give us the example of what happened in Denmark. They thought they were doing a good thing for the population by making a tax called a fat tax, but the inflated prices, that means the higher prices, drove or caused the consumers to go over the border. So you could say over the border or across the border to Germany. So they didn't want to pay more for the things they wanted to buy. They just went to the neighboring country and purchased their food there. So they dropped the policy. The policy was dropped, or they dropped it a year later, and they canceled plans for a tax on sugar. So that didn't really work with the population. In 2012, France quadrupled the tax on saturated fat-rich palm oil, dubbed the Nutella tax, because the popular hazelnut spread contained the ingredient. Voters in Berkeley, California, backed calls for a 1 cent an ounce tax on fizzy drinks in a referendum last year. The beverages were banned from schools in New South Wales, Australia in 2007, but this has sometimes been ignored. Meanwhile, families in England and several U.S. states are sent warning letters warning if tests in schools show children are overweight. Wow. Okay. Diego.
Okay. In 2012, France quadrupled the tax on saturated fat-rich palm oil, dubbed the Nutella tax, because the popular hazelnut spread contained the ingredient. Voters in Berkeley, California, backed calls for 1 cent and ounce tax on fizzy drinks in a referendum last year. The beverages were banned from the schools in New South Wales, Australia, in 2007, but this has sometimes been ignored. Meanwhile, families in England and several U.S. states are sent warning letters warning if tests in schools show children are overweight.
Overweight. Okay. Okay, so these are just more examples of what some governments have been trying to address this problem. So quadrupled means 4 times as much. So they have this tax on saturated fat rich. So fat rich means it's rich in saturated fat. So palm oil has a lot of saturated fat, and they dubbed it the Nutella tax. So dubbed here means that that's like the nickname they gave it. So when you coin a term or you give a name to something, you dub it that thing. Dubbed is also when you have a movie, like in English, let's say, and then it's dubbed into your language, let's say Spanish, which means there's no subtitles, it's just you're hearing it in Spanish. You're not hearing the English. That's also dubbed. So anyways, Nutella, because Nutella has this hazelnut spread, that's what Nutella is. It's a spread. We call that a spread. You spread it on bread or cookies, for example. Other things that are spread on are like, butter, cream cheese, things like that. Also, Berkeley, we even read about this when it happened. They called for, they wanted a 1 cent an ounce tax. So usually like a soda might be 12 ounces or something, so that might be 12 cents per soda. We don't say too much fizzy drinks in the United States, but we understand it. We would say more like soda. It was really more like a soda tax. It wasn't just like on Perrier, which is also fizzy. So we would use the term soda. In a referendum is when the population can say, we want to vote on this. It's like they make a proposal and then the voters get to vote. But it comes because people want it to be there. It's not from the government. It's from the people. That's the idea. Okay, these were banned, so they took out the beverages from the schools. That's in Australia, but sometimes it's ignored. So some people ignore these bans. That's kind of the reality of this situation here. Also here, I guess parents now are, being sent warning letters. So warning the parents that maybe their child needs to watch their weight, something like that. So far, anti-obesity policy has focused largely on taxation or providing information. But on Friday, politicians in Puerto Rico, a self-governing U.S. territory, start debating whether the government should get more involved in one of the main perceived reasons for the growth in childhood obesity: irresponsible parenting. If the Legislative Assembly approves Senator Gilberto Rodriguez Valle's plans, teachers will be told to look out for students they think are obese. They would refer those detected to a counselor or, in several examples, to a social worker. Health department officials would meet parents and decide whether the obesity comes from overeating or a medical condition. Okay, Ellen.
Okay. So far, anti-obesity policy has focused largely on taxation or providing information. But on Friday, politicians in Puerto Rico, a self-governing U.S. territory, start debating whether the government should get more involved in one of the main perceived reasons for the growth in childhood obesity: irresponsible parenting. If the Legislative Assembly approves Senator Gilberto Rodriguez Valle's plans, teachers will be told to look out for students they think are obese. They would refer those detected to a counselor or, in severe examples, to a social worker. Health department officials would meet parents and decide whether the obesity comes from overeating or a medical condition.
Good. All right, so far just means like up until now. So up until now, anti-obesity, so against obesity policies. So policies that have tried to stop obesity or tried to address obesity. These policies have focused largely on, so that means mainly on. Largely just means mostly on, largely on. That's what they're focusing on. Taxation, like the Danish tax, or just educational campaigns, we say, providing information or giving information to people. But this guy in Puerto Rico, they are trying to something different. So they're debating. So that means they're arguing about something, yes, no, yes, why, and talking about the issue and trying to see if the government should get more involved in. So to be involved in means you're not just standing by watching, you're actually going to do something. You're going to get into the situation. So they want to become more involved in one of the reasons they think. So this is why they use the term perceived reason. So according to the people in the Puerto Rican government, the perception, that's the noun, the perception is that kids are becoming obese because of irresponsible parenting. So not responsible. So perhaps they're not letting their kids, or they're not having their kids do enough exercise. Probably more important is the eating, what the foods that they're letting their children eat. Okay, so if the Legislative Assembly, that's The legislative means the law. So the assembly, the group of people who make the laws, like senators, congresspeople, that kind of thing. This is what their plan is. Teachers will be told to look out for. So that's a phrasal verb. To look out for means to watch. Watch your students, and then if you think they are obese, based on those numbers, height, body, weight, that kind of thing, you're going to kind of turn them in, we would say, or refer them, the ones that you detected, the ones that were chosen, to a counselor or a social worker. So kind of a similar thing. Counselor is more or less psychologist, perhaps, and a social worker helps families and children with social issues like health, education, that type of stuff. All right, so then what happens is they would meet the parents. So they have to come together, have a meeting with the parents, talk about it, and then you have to figure out and decide whether, so the word whether could also be decide if the obesity comes from overeating, so the child is being allowed to eat too much food, or maybe a certain medical condition. So some children have a medical condition where they take medication, and the medication actually kind of makes them, we call it like get puffy or balloon up or something like that. It's part of their medical problem. Okay, if food is the problem, it would be up to parents to set a diet and exercise program with monthly visits by officials to make sure it's being kept up. After 6 months, they would examine the child again. Parents would face fines up to $800 if there was no improvement within a year. Opponents say that in a society where thinness has become a status symbol perpetuated by glossy magazines and media images, the idea of teachers acting as body police will further stigmatize the overweight. There is also a large question mark over whether this approach, very much stick rather than carrot, can work. Okay, Mustafa.
Okay, I have to start from if food,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Okay, yeah. If food is the problem, it would be up to parents to set a diet and exercise programming with monthly visits by officials to make sure it's being kept up. After 6 months, they would examine the child again. Parents would face fines of up to $800 if there was no improvement within a year. Opponents say that in a society where thinness has become a status symbol perpetuated by glossy magazines and media images, the idea of teachers acting as body policy will further stigmatize the overweight. There is also a large question mark over whether this approach, very much stick rather than carrot, can work.
Okay. Okay, so if food is the problem, which means they don't have a medical condition or issue, then it would be up to the parents. So this is an expression, to be up to somebody. It means it's your choice. Or not your choice, it's your responsibility. Yeah. So it would be the responsibility of the parents to set a diet. So if it's up to you, it means you're the person who has to do it. If it's up to me, I'm the person who has to do it. So they're saying it's up to the parents to set a diet. That would be like to create a diet, to plan a diet, to make a diet, and exercise program. This is the British spelling, program. We say it the same way, but we would take off that M and E, and we would just write it like that. So it's just a little different spelling. Same pronunciation, the program. So they have to create some kind of exercise program for their children. Then they get to have monthly visits by officials. You could also say with officials. It means the officials are going to come and check on the children to make sure. You could also say to ensure that it's being kept up, so it's being continued. So if you keep something up, that's the expression, to keep something up, it means you continue to do it. So you can't just stop after 1 month or something like that. So then they're going to be examined again. So to examine means to check, to evaluate, to assess. You know, they're probably going to weigh them, and then they, what would happen, so we're using would here because this is hypothetical situation. If this were to happen, then they would face fines up to. So that's what they would experience. You know, they're going to have to pay. If you face a fine, it means that's what you're going to have to pay. You have to pay a fine up to $800. That's a lot of money. That's if there was no improvement. So if you don't see improvement, the children haven't lost any weight, then they would have the fine. Okay, opponents. These are the people who oppose. That's the verb, to oppose. They oppose the legislation, this law. They don't like it, so they are against it. And one of their reasons is this. So in a society already where thinness, being thin, being slim, being skinny, it's kind of a status symbol. It means like you're better than. You know, that's the idea. You're a better person if you are thin. And this is perpetuated by. So if you perpetuate something, it means you keep it going. So you keep this idea that thin people are somehow better, you know, than fat people or something, or people that are obese. And it's perpetuated by glossy magazines. So glossy here means shiny. You know, when you have the like Vogue magazine, it's a very shiny, glossy, pretty magazine. And of course, media images, the pictures that we see of the movie stars and the models and all of that stuff, even if they're you know, touched up by Photoshop or something. So this idea of the teachers acting as, so acting as body police, like that's their job now. They have to act as some kind of a body police. This will further, so this will like make it even worse, is basically what they're saying. Stigmatize. If you stigmatize something like being overweight, it means you're making it a bad thing. You're stigmatizing it so people feel bad about themselves. People look at other people in a negative way. So that's what it means to stigmatize something, in this case being overweight. So there's a large question mark over whether or if this approach, this law, this attempt, which is, and that's why I put it in comma here, in between commas here, very much stick rather than carrot. So stick is punishment, and a carrot is like an incentive. So you hit somebody with a stick as a punishment, rather than giving them carrots to try to get them to do what you want them to do. That's a thing that we talk about in English, like punishment versus a positive kind of incentive or reinforcement. That kind of thing. So they don't even know if it's really going to be able to work. But Rodriguez Valle and his supporters insist families will be informed in confidence, meaning no humiliation for children in front of classmates. Fines are necessary for society, argues a colleague, saying the obese child is a health problem that can become a financial burden because the child can develop diabetes, heart ailments, and other diseases. In 2013, 27.9% of adults in Puerto Rico were described as obese, upper to middling by rates across the U.S. However, the figure for children under the age of 4, 17.9%, is the highest of all U.S. states and territories. If parents are failing to do their job from the start, schools have to ensure standards instead, backed by financial penalties, it is argued. Okay, Patricia.
But Rodriguez Valles, it is right. But Rodriguez Valle and his supporters insist families will be informed in confidence, meaning no humiliation for children in front of classmates. Fines are necessary for society, argues a colleague, saying, the obese child is a health problem that can become a financial burden because the child can develop diabetes, heart ailments, and other diseases. In 2013, 27.9% of adults in Puerto Rico were described as obese, upper to middling by rates across the U.S. However, the figure for children under the age of 4, 17.9%, is the highest of all U.S. states and territories. If parents are failing to do their job from the start, the schools have to ensure standards instead, backed by financial penalties. It is art.
Good. Okay, so his supporters. So this is the guy who kind of maybe we say introduced the legislation, the idea of this law. And so people who support him, those are the supporters. The opponents are the people who oppose him. So they insist. That means they're clear. They're consistent. They keep saying that, you know, when you insist on something, it means you want people to know for sure. So they want everybody to know that this is going to be in confidence. So if your child is considered obese, you will be informed, which means you will be told about it in confidence, which means privately. You're not going to say it, you know, in the middle of the class and all that type of stuff. So this will be a very private thing so that nobody is humiliated. Humiliation is the noun, so no humiliation for children. Or you could say no child will be humiliated in front of classmates. So if something happens in front of somebody, that means where they can see it, like, you know, in front of the classroom or just inside the classroom. So they don't want to humiliate children. They want to help them. That's kind of their idea. So he thinks they're necessary. The fines, the payments, you know, are necessary. Let's see. Oh, and the concern is that in the future, you know, if a child is obese now, in the future, this can cause it to become a financial burden, like on the healthcare system. So a burden is like something that harms you, or that's a financial burden means you have to pay. So if, you know, in the future, if these children get diabetes or some other heart ailments, and that means an issue like an illness, a sickness, or some other type of diseases, this will be a financial burden, because not only for the family perhaps or that person as an adult, but for the healthcare system of the country or the territory. That's the problem there. That's what it means. Somebody else is going to have to pay. Okay, so already there's quite a lot. So upper to middling by rates. Okay, so this means it's, you know, it's a little bit on the higher side than compared to other states across the U.S. Upper to middling, so it's above a lot of the states, and it's the highest in terms of children. They are failing to do their job, so it means they are not doing their job. If you fail at something, it means you don't succeed, so you're not succeeding. And so because parents are not, you know, helping their children be healthy, their argument is that the schools have to jump in and ensure standards. So they have to make sure that parents know what the standard is, like an expectation. You know, this is what it should be. And they're going to back them with the financial penalties. So you can back like a regulation by financial penalties, which means if you don't follow this rule, you're going to get penalized or fined. There is a sense of helplessness in the face of the world's weight gain, largely attributed to rising food intake and falling activity levels. Not only is obesity increasing, a study funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation published last year said, but no national success stories have been reported in the past 33 years. Urgent global action and leadership is needed to help countries to more effectively intervene. The latest UK figures show 24.7% of adults are obese, lower than Puerto Rico, but still among, they don't need the there, still among the highest in Western Europe. The rate was 14% for children aged 2 to 15 in England, 17% in Scotland, and 19% in Wales in 2012. In Northern Ireland in 2011 to 2012, it was 10%. So, does Puerto Rico's proposal appeal? Okay, Saud. Saud, I don't hear you.
What?
Yeah. Saud, are you there? Maybe something happened to your microphone. Okay, why don't we go to Ilkin?
Can I read? Can
Yeah,
I read?
Ilkin, you can read. Yeah.
There is a sense of helplessness in the face of the world's weight gain, largely attributed to rising food intake and falling activity levels. Not only is obesity increasing, a study funded by the Meal and Melinda Gates Foundation published last year said, but no national success stories have been reported in the past 33 years. Urgent global action and leadership is needed to help countries to more effectively intervene. The latest United Kingdom figures show that 24.7% of adults are obese.
Obese.
Okay, lower than Puerto Rico, but still among the highest in Western Europe. The rate was 14% for children aged 2 to 15 in England, 70% in Scotland, and 19% in Wales in 2012. In Northern Ireland in 2011 and 2015 it was 10%. So does Puerto Rico's proposal appeal?
Okay, good. All right, so to have a sense of helplessness, that means like people feel helpless, like we don't know what to do about this problem. It's a problem that the entire world is facing, some more than others, but this problem of the world's weight gain. Gain means when you put on more weight on your body, you are gaining. It's largely, again, largely attributed to, which means the cause of it is rising food intake, eating more food. That's the basic idea there, is if you eat more food, then you will gain weight. So a lot of people seem to be eating more food. So it's attributed to this, and also falling activity. So we're having rising means increasing, and falling means decreasing. So less and less activity as people spend more time indoors, on computers, things like that. So this is from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that obesity is not only increasing, but the problem is there have not been any success stories. So no success stories have been reported. So that means nobody's really dealing with the problem in a good way, an effective way. So there's urgent global action is needed. So urgent means like right now, immediate. It's very important. It has to happen very soon. That's what urgent means. And countries need help to be able to intervene. So when you intervene, it means you get into the problem. You intervene to try to solve an issue, to solve a problem. So people, parents, aren't doing it on their own. So some countries and leadership is needed to intervene. All right, these are just figures. Figures are the numbers. So these are just some statistics about Europe, the UK, England, that type of thing. So the question is, does the proposal appeal? That means, do people think it's a good idea? If something is appealing, it's a good idea, or you like it, you're interested in it. Okay, obesity isn't like smoking, the cutting of which has been a public health success in recent years, says Andrew Hill, professor of medical psychology at Leeds University. Smoking is a single behavior that's really explicitly linked to a number of adverse health conditions, whereas obesity is a state of body. The causes are driven by environment. You live in an environment which encourages you to eat lots of food and discourages physical activity. To then apply a penalty to punish something that people have varying degrees of control over seems to be not just counterproductive, but morally dubious. Okay, Saud, let's try and see if your microphone works now. Okay. All right, so try reading from Obesity Isn't Like Smoking.
Obesity isn't like smoking, a cutting of which has been
Saud? Yes. Okay, yeah. Saud, the sound wasn't so good here. Hold on. Yeah, I knew where you were, but we really couldn't understand. But you were reading, so that's okay. Let me go over it now. Okay, so this person is arguing his opinion. He's a professor of medical psychology, so psychology, the mind, you know. If people can keep their microphones muted, that helps with the noise. So just if you're not talking, just keep your microphone muted. Thanks. Okay, so cutting of which. So cutting means like stopping, you know. So stopping smoking or getting people to quit smoking has been a success, a health success in recent years. So over the last few years, governments have been successful in helping people stop smoking. But he's arguing here that this is a single behavior. So it's just one. Smoking is just like one thing that you're doing, and he says it's very explicitly linked. Explicitly means you can see it, you can realize it. It's not implicit. It's not implicit in the thing, but it's explicitly linked to a number of adverse health conditions. So you know that smoking is really bad for you. But obesity, he is arguing, is a state of body. It's like it's what your body is in right now. It can change over time, and he's arguing that it's driven by environment. So when something is driven by something else, it means that's how it's working. You know, it's being affected by the environment. You know, your weight and stuff. So if you live in a certain environment, you may be heavier or not so heavy. So he's arguing that right now we live in a modern day environment which encourages you. So we have advertisements, we have fast food restaurants, we have Starbucks, you know, lots and lots of places to go get food, and it's fast and it tastes good. Doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you, but this is the way that we are encouraged to eat lots of food. We have lots of food available, you know, and our modern day environment discourages physical activities, which means, if you're being discouraged, it means the opposite of encouraged. So children, especially staying inside the classroom. Here in the United States, kids go out for recess less. PE programs are being cut. So they're really focusing on academics, but this discourages physical activity. So they're not getting as much physical activity as maybe 20, 30 years ago. Okay, so then to apply a penalty, to give somebody a penalty and punish that person for something that they have varying degrees of control over. So you can't really necessarily, the child can't control how much food is in the household or all the commercials that they see maybe, or what they can do at school, that kind of idea. So it's maybe not just counterproductive. Counterproductive means against productivity, so it's not going to work, basically, but also morally dubious. Dubious here meaning like suspect or negative. It's not really even a good thing morally. It could be you're setting somebody up for failure and punishing them for something they can't necessarily control. Obesity is more of a problem among poorer groups who live in an obesogenic environment, according to Hill. He argues that exercise is less available, and given the higher proportion of household income spent on food, leads to the purchase of cheap, highly calorific products, sugary or fatty, with limited nutritional value. Okay, Amparo.
Poorer groups who live in an obesogenic environment, according to Hale. He argues that exercise is less available, and given the higher proportion of household income spent on food, leads to the purchase of cheap, highly calorific products, sugary or fatty, with limited nutritional value.
Good. Okay, so it's more of a problem among poorer groups. So among means, with the poorer groups of people. They live, he's calling this an obesogenic. Genic meaning the origin of obesity. So he's blaming the environment, really. The environment that these poor people live in. And he's explaining what that environment is. They have less money, so they spend a higher proportion of their household income on food. So, maybe they're spending 60% because they have less money total than other people who have more money. So in the United States, at least, this leads a person, so this kind of causes you to purchase cheap food. You go to Walmart or something like that, and you buy big boxes of cheap food that have high calories usually, and they usually have a lot of sugar and fat, but not very much nutritional value, so limited nutritional value. That's one of the problems with the environment here. When they go to buy something, the good food, like just fruits, vegetables, meats, that's actually more expensive than these processed foods here in the United States. Hill dislikes the Puerto Rican proposal. We need to move the argument away from saying it's all about individual responsibility and it's you to blame. People do have some responsibility, but we must recognize the power of environment and how difficult it is to change for the rest of your life. Okay, Artem.
Okay, but could you tell me what the first word from what I should read?
Hill dislikes the Puerto Rican.
Okay, thank you. Hill dislikes the Puerto Rican proposal. We need to move the argument away from saying it's all about the individual responsibility and it's you to blame. People do have some responsibility, but we must recognize the power of the environment and how difficult it is to change for the rest of your life.
Good. All right, so he's arguing it's the environment, Yes, people have individual, so personal responsibility, but he's saying you shouldn't just blame everybody because they do live in the environment and it's powerful. So you have to recognize, or you have to see and understand that the environment that you live in is also a powerful, we would say, a determinant. It determines what you can do, what you can buy, how you live your life. Philadelphia, the most overweight of America's major cities, has cut the obesity rate among children. The city authority has persuaded shops to stock more fruit and vegetables in areas once described as food deserts because of a lack of nutritious offerings. It has also banned full-fat milk from school canteens as well as deep-fat frying, while sugary drinks have disappeared from vending machines. Okay, Diego.
Okay, Philadelphia, the most overweight of America's major cities, has cut the obesity rate among children. The city authority has persuaded shops to stock more fruit and vegetables in areas once described as food deserts because of a lack of nutritious offerings. It has also banned full-fat milk from school canteens, as well as deep-fat frying, while sugary drinks have disappeared from vending machines.
So they have persuaded, means they convinced the shops, stop carrying just the processed food. We want you to stock. Stock means to put in your inventory so that you have it available for your customers. More fruits and vegetables in areas that were described as food deserts. So you couldn't really find real food. You could only find like convenience food or fast food or processed food, which lacks nutrition. So lack of means it doesn't have nutrition. So they didn't really have offerings or possibilities of things that you could buy that had the processed foods in packages, cans, boxes, things like that. They also banned full-fat milk from canteens. We say cafeterias here in the United States, school cafeterias. No more deep fat frying, like making French fries, things like that. And the sugary drinks, that would be the sodas, probably, from the vending machines. That's where you like a Coke machine, Pepsi machine, something like that. None of these efforts involve stigmatizing or penalizing parents, says Rebecca Poole, Deputy Director of the Connecticut-based Rudd Center for Food Policy and Obesity. In contrast, these changes exemplify ways to support and empower parents to make it easier to improve the health of their children. Pohl argues that a more integrated approach involving schools, encouraging better eating, and more exercise is needed. Okay, Ellen?
None of these efforts involved stigmatizing or penalizing parents, says Rebecca Pohl, Deputy Director of the Connecticut-based Rudd Center for Food Policy and Obesity. In contrast, these changes exemplify ways to support and empower parents to make it easier to improve the health of their children. Pohl argues that a more integrated approach involving schools encouraging better eating and more exercise is needed.
Great. All right, so they didn't have to make people feel bad for their weight. They didn't have to penalize them, make them pay money, that type of thing. So they want to, if you exemplify something, it means you show, you give an example, and a good example of how you can do something. So they were giving this good example of how you can actually support and empower parents so that it's easier for them to help their children. But the Puerto Rico Obesity Plan, let me just let you guys read because we're out of time. So Mustafa, why don't you go ahead and just read this paragraph without me reading it.
Okay. But the Puerto Rico Obesity Plan has echoes of the action taken in the UK and elsewhere to combat persistent truancy from school. In March last year, it was revealed that a record number of truancy fines had been handed to parents, but that persistent truancy was falling. But there has been criticism that there is no link and that fines do not work. Some critics believe fines disproportionately affect poor parents.
Disproportionately. So they affect poor parents more than wealthier parents. Okay, so persistent truancy. Truancy means when you don't go to school. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys keep reading so people can end up reading a little bit more. Okay, Patricia, go ahead.
For a study published in 2000, the economists Yuri Nithi and Aldo Rusticini test the effects of fines on parents who consistently pick up children late from daycare centers in Israel. Rather than deter the behavior, lateness increased because they start to reward the fine as a reasonable fee for extra childcare, rather than a punishment. A powerful intrinsic motive was crowded out by a weaker extrinsic one, they conclude.
Okay, and Saud, why don't you go ahead and finish up for us there. Of what works. Okay, yeah, so it's a big issue. I think, Amparo, you said in your country they're dealing with it too, so definitely something that's happening in a lot of places around the world, and I don't know if anybody has the best answer, except for I think it's a pretty good thing that in schools at least you provide better food. That's a first step for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but the parents now, they are very cold.
Yeah. Yeah. Parents, parents themselves grew up nowadays, modern day parents grew up eating more fast food and more processed food, so they like it. So it's hard to even know what to eat, what's healthy, because some people who are now parents, that's how they grew up, eating that kind of food, because we've gone more and more away from, whole foods or natural foods, that kind of thing. Cooking, a lot of people don't know how to cook. Yeah.
I think the governments have a big responsibility in this. They should like more forbid the kind of food that promotes the obesity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's what people are trying to figure out, and I would say a lot of people agree that the government should do something. In the United States, it's always a problem because we have individualism, corporate, they have the right to produce the food, and it's really just, you don't have to buy it if you don't want it. So they don't like governments to regulate, but somebody's got to do something to help. Yeah. So it's a tough issue. Well, thanks, guys. I got to go to my next class, which is going to be another reading class about how a blind boy is going to affect the money in Australia. They're going to print new money so he can know what the currency is, how much a dollar bill is, and that kind of thing. So maybe I'll see you there. If not, thanks for coming, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.
Okay, have a nice
Love
day. Take care.
you too.